Okay, I'd like to do a short video here dealing with the topic of globalization. It's sort of to go along with the slides. You'll be able to go through the slides. They're also in the package. But let's look at globalization. It's been a problem for the United States because of deindustrialization that it has caused. And that is true in most industrial countries. Other countries have gained a lot of success from it. So we've got to talk about why. Who's competitive, who isn't competitive in this market, okay? First, let's look at the American issues. Why aren't we competitive in this global market? Let's look at, first of all, the discrepancies with our product costs that nobody else in the world has. If you look at the slides, you'll see one that shows the cost of a $20,000 car in this country to manufacture it, or the selling cost is $20,000. Manufacturing costs in that are $3,000 for healthcare, and that doesn't matter where we're talking Obamacare or whatever. In this country, healthcare costs get wrapped into our product costs. That's not true of other countries. So right away, you've got a car with a $3,000 disadvantage, if you will. If you look at the rest of it, there's $2,000 to $2,500 in pension cost of the workers in that price, and then another $500, and this continues to rise in regulations. So here you've got an American car sells for $20,000 versus, let's say, and we don't have one yet, but a Chinese car. We will shortly, by the way. Cherry Motors of China has already signed a deal with Walmart. But so you got a $6,000, let's say, disadvantage right away. Okay, so that's one issue, and those are big issues: pensions and healthcare. You might say, don't other countries have that? No, China does not. Europe does not. Now, Europe, you'll hear about their healthcare, but their healthcare is paid for by the government. Everybody pays a lot of taxes for it. I'm not making a statement here on healthcare, but it doesn't get wrapped into the product costs like it does in the United States. My argument as a manufacturer is we at least ought to have a tariff on incoming products so that our workers' healthcare and pensions are balanced out. I guess we're calling these now the latest thing. We call some of this border tax, traditionally known as tariffs, which you'll read about. Okay, so that's one issue. Another issue is currency manipulation. China, particularly in this case, they tend to peg their currency. Why? They want to keep their currency low, or the value of their yen low. That makes their products cheaper in the United States. For the United States, we've always tried to, because our politicians tend to look at it as a matter of prestige, and because we're the reserve currency for the world, we keep our dollar high. Well, that makes our products very expensive overseas. So it's a disadvantage to manufacturing. Manufacturers like me get happy when the dollar is going down, just the opposite of what you'll hear on TV, because our products are becoming cheaper and will sell more. So those are the real biggies. There are other ones out there that we need to look at why there is a disadvantage, okay? Now we might look at, let's see, a couple other notes here. I might break this up, I'm not sure. We want to look at the idea of a tariff. Like I say, a tariff right now is the hot issue politically, but it changes from administration to administration. From a manufacturing standpoint, we need tariffs. That's my opinion. Now, you're going to read about both ends of the spectrum. I've given you an interview in the Titans book of Adam Smith, okay, who looks at it as free trade, although you'll see there's problems with that. Most politicians have never read Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. It's a 900-page monster of archaic English. But anyhow, you'll read that end, and Adam Smith never saw a factory. The steam engine wasn't even out yet. On the other end, you'll read about William McKinley, a American president who fought very hard for tariffs. In fact, most of the big companies and industry we have today owe their roots to the McKinley tariffs of the 1800 into the 1900s. So we'll look at both sides of that, okay? Again, I always take it from the manufacturing standpoint, not from the political standpoint. You may differ politically, but again, my perspective. Now, I put in the course as an optional reading, if you just want to hear my perspective on it, something I've written for the International Union, the Steelworkers, called a Manufacturing Manifesto. And that is in there, and that's a document that supports tariffs from a manufacturing standpoint. Okay. We've also seen that you know, the movement now, it's not just us now anymore. I mean, for me, it's written about this for years and studied it. The changes come so fast that we're talking tariffs. I mean, it used to be that was taboo. It still is taboo, to be quite honest with you. A couple of my quotes in the Wall Street Journal were cut back. They wouldn't quote one of my books. They quoted me because the book had it in the title, Protectionism. It was about William McKinley. The Apostle of Protectionism was the total title of the book. So that's how sensitive people were in this country, in business and so forth, about tariffs. Free trades, the big banks love free trade because it's like a casino for them. They don't care which way trade goes. Okay, so you've got to get that disconnect, and you'll read about that in the McKinley era even. You know, big banking and big business are not the same thing. People look at them that way. Manufacturers traditionally have not trusted big bankers. I mean, that goes back to Henry Ford and Andrew Carnegie, George Westinghouse, all these people you will read about. Okay, so you got to look at that too in perspective. Now we'll spend the next part of the course looking at what we can do, given a set of whatever our politics are at the time. There are still some things we can do. But at least you've got to understand these problems of globalization. Like I say, resistance is rising. England, right? The Brexit was all about globalization and getting out of the cost of the European Union and regulation and other penalties on products. So, you know, the world's changing quickly. You'll be involved in that. It'll affect you. It'll affect you as a manufacturer. It'll affect you as a retailer. Of course, sometimes from that standpoint, and I'm not taking that one, from a retailing standpoint, they tend to like, quote, free trade. I don't believe there is free trade, like I said, for the reasons I've given you. But like Walmart, they get the products in cheaper, okay? So there's always that risk, and you'll read about that in the McKinley readings as we're about. One last thing on this. How did McKinley protect against the common arguments for having tariffs? For not having tariffs, trade wars. Well, McKinley's answer is the one that we're starting to talk about again. In any trade deal, he asked for reciprocity. That was his theme. In other words, if I trade $1 with you, you trade $1 with me, roughly. Okay? We didn't have these outrageous surpluses and deficits between countries. So when you're fair like that, it doesn't give the motivation for, quote, a trade war. I may disagree on the history of trade wars, by the way, with economists. You'll read some of that. I think the manufacturing view is different than the economist view, especially free trader view today, that no economist today would be a protectionist. I mean, they wouldn't even be allowed to eat at the same lunch table with other economists at big universities. They'd be relegated to work, basically. That's changing. It's changing. For the first time, people are starting to question if the king has clothes on around the world. That quote free trade, which is not free trade. For example, I forgot to mention one point. China, for example, puts a 25% tariff on all our products coming in, and yet all their products coming into this country come in free. So these are the type of things we're dealing with. It's a complicated issue. And again, from this course, we look at it from the manufacturing standpoint. How does it affect operations of a company? Okay, so I'll deal with some other things later, but I think those those key points will help you a little bit with the slides. Again, feel free to call me. Love to talk to you about this or anything. I've given you my cell phone. Or give me an email, give me your number, and tell me the times you'd like me to call. And I'll be happy to do that. I'm serious about that. Love to talk over these things with you and get you to understand it. It's important to me too. I mean, like I say, I do a lot of writing about this, so I'd like people to truly understand this message. I come from a manufacturing family, and I'd like to see manufacturing come back in this country. Okay, so we'll end there on the general topic. Look at the slides. I think the readings, you'll see both ends of the spectrum. You'll get a good feel for this. But still, you may want to talk it over, and feel free to do that. Okay.